So why aren't we not sending it to them? That's what we set it up for.
And I believe that was Ms. Allison's recommendation to you.
Okay. I thought you'd argue with it. Okay, we're fine. So why don't we ask them to go that direction, and maybe they'll be successful. We don't know, but at least that's it's not this board. It's someone else that'll look at it and the thing and have a conversation with you, and then let's talk about it.
So essentially, we had another option that was given to us that the board could grant, and if we had somebody that was from the fire department that was on a fire watch that was at our facility while we were there. So while we were having events there. And basically granting the SUP with me having somebody hired from the fire department to be there during the events for a fire watch until this matter is resolved so that we can move forward with our SUP and start having events.
May I just, as a comment, I think that one of the things that we need to remember is that we're operating as the board right now under a recommendation that was made with stipulations for approval that we can't deviate from, because planning and zoning made certain specific recommendations. And in order for that to completely be followed through with, for us to make a decision, we need to follow the policy and the procedure, which is finally to go to the appeals board.
Go to the appeals board.
And ask them to grant that exception. Otherwise, this is all going to be turned around on another type of, and I'd hate to see that all of a sudden what you've been doing is upended and you can't do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
David, Becky, David has something.
And I will also, just to interrupt the meeting for just a second, we are now live on camera. We were not with video for the first half of the meeting, but video is available now. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. David?
Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, if you wish to refer this matter to your Board of Building Codes Appeals, I think it'd be appropriate to table this matter. Since the Board of Building Codes is put on a relatively short timeline for meeting, but there is a timeline and it works on business days, not calendar days, I am doubtful you would have their recommendation by next Wednesday. It might be appropriate to consider tabling this to March 15th. And ask that the matter be referred to the Board of Building Codes Appeals.
Well, I think it's probably the best. I'm totally want to see this event center happen, but I want to make sure we follow the rules down the thing, and that's why we put this in a couple of years ago. This board was exactly for that, so they could present it. So if there is an exception, there can be an exception.
My frustration comes from the fact that we've jumped through all of these hoops with the Kansas State Fire Marshal. We've gotten multiple engineers to come and look at it and make sure everything is safe. And if we would have known that all we had to do was take it to the International Building Code Board,
to the county board,
then
we could have done that.
That would have sped this process up quite a bit.
Well,
but you can't skip a step in a process.
We didn't know the step.
We didn't know that step was even a step.
Mm-hmm. So,
excuse me, but we're not going to have comments from the people in the sitting in the gallery.
If I could say something again, Chair, I think I understand you're frustrated, and I think what the county commissioner is trying to do the right thing up here. But I think right now this is probably the best process to go through is follow what our rules say. And I'm sorry we didn't bring this aboard before, but it's still we're 2 weeks out of getting an answer for you. That's just what I would. So I would like to make a motion that we table this till, was it March 15th? Is that the date? March 15th, and give them the opportunity to go to the appeals board.
And you need to go ahead and make that application. I'm sure Amy will assist you with that process so that we can get that hearing, because hopefully they can schedule it sooner than we have 5 days.
Yeah, we're just saying at the latest. Okay?
Thank you.
That's my motion.
Motion, I need a second. I'll second the motion. Voting, aye.
Nay.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 1 abstention, 1 nay, and 3 yes. Okay, now We need to move on to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-5, a rezone request from RR5 to RR 2.5, located at 20809 and 20811 225th Street and 00000 Mitchell Road.
Before you is a request for a rezoning. As mentioned, this was a request to rezone parcels 20809 and 20811 225th Street and a portion of 0000 Mitchell Road from RR5 to RR 2.5. The legal description of the area that is being requested to be rezoned has been provided to you. It is, as Joe Herring mentioned earlier, approximately 5 acres in size. The property in question actually is a parcel that contains 2 single-family houses and some accessory structures. Their intent is to subdivide those into 2 separate parcels with the least amount of land, additional land as possible. So that's why they are requesting the RR 2.5 rezoning. As mentioned previously also, this property does not, as identified by the future comprehensive plan use map, is still designated for 5 acres. However, across the street, there is land that is designated for RR 2.5, which is where their request is arising from. Because of the designation, staff was not in support of the request because it didn't obviously match the land use map. However, the Planning Commission voted 6-1 with 2 absent to amend Plan Use staff's recommendation for denial and therefore approve case DEV 22-166. So, if you have any questions, please let me know.
It's just the distance, Amy, right?
It is. The RR 2.5 on the future land use map is right at the center line of the roadway.
Okay.
I went out and looked at this. Across the street's actually commercial.
Right. Yes, I was going to say
That's what I
that.
thought.
Commercial and industrial.
I think it is an industrial type.
Or industrial.
use. Mhm.
I mean, it's a business.
Across the
All
road.
right, and it's not on an SUP. It's a permanent business. It's a permanent zone for that, right?
I believe a portion of it is, yes.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Entertain a motion?
I move that we approve resolution 2023-5, a rezone request from RR5 to RR 2.5 located 20809 and 20811 225th Street and Mitchell Road.
Second.
A motion is second. We'll begin voting. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Steben?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Now we need to move on to a motion to approve case number DEV 22-129 and the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Plan Review.
All right. Final thing for today for me, I hope. Before you is the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Plan Review. This is a statutory requirement that every single city and county in the state of Kansas who has a comprehensive plan has to perform. So this would be the review for 2023 here. The Planning Commission has actually started this process probably back in October. They held, a study session to begin discussing this, and then they held a public hearing. At that public hearing, they did request to have a joint study session with you guys, which we held on January 18th. During that study session, some additional recommendations was made beyond what was discussed at their first Planning Commission hearing. And then they went back in February, on February 8th, and formally approved the recommendations that were provided to you. The planning staff did reach out to various departments within the county that had some implementation strategies within our comprehensive plan, and they also provided you with some recommendations or amendments to what was in the strategies. Some additional items since we last met, based from the joint work session, was to add was to amend the zoning and subdivision regulations to encourage subdivision developments be designed in a manner that encourages extension of utilities such as water and sewer, and then establish a utility hookup requirement and also schedule quarterly work sessions with the Board of County Commissioners to discuss various land development issues as they arise. However, the remainder of the list was the same that was provided to you at that joint work session. Have any further questions, please let me know.
Mark, do you have anything to add with this?
No, Commissioners, I think that one of the items that Amy referenced, the utility connection, that the board requested that in the future, when these subdivisions are platted, it says when utilities are available, they will be required to connect to them. So I think that means sewer is the primary.
Right.
You don't think that means people wanting to not hook on to rural water and go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get a 2.5 acre approval for a well?
Well, I think that's a different process, not one that necessarily was supported, but I know the one you're referencing.
Well, when we're talking about utilities, water's a utility. And if they can opt out, I mean, I don't agree with the 2.5 acre well, but I thought we would establish that at 5 acres.
Commissioners, I was in attendance at those meetings, and Amy was as well. Please interrupt. The Planning Commission certainly wanted public wastewater treatment to be paramount on that list of connections because of the health and safety factors. I believe they also, though, did consider the fact that they would prefer public water supply systems for these developments rather than public wells, and that is something that you could ask the Planning Commission to revisit.
Well, but wouldn't the sanitary sewer most likely going to have to be annexed into the city anyways?
Some cities require that. It's not mandatory that they require it. They just do. So it'd be up to the cities at that point.
But most cities do.
And this would be all on the stuff
They don't
that's
all.
3 units per acre, pretty much.
Well, if let's say you have a subdivision that's right next to a city and there's no sewer currently, so they have septic systems, and in the future the city runs a sewer line, like they're going to extend their sewer services, and they run a sewer line down the front of the property. At that point in time, they could require that the people connect to.
Even if you had 5 acres?
Even if you had 5
Yep.
acres. Yes.
Well,
That
that's
was the
going to
recommendation.
discourage the growth near the cities.
But the cities can waive that.
Okay.
Most cities want that property annexed before they'll. I know maybe not most, but I know some will want that property annexed before they'll service them, because that's tax dollars out of that city helping support that. And most people would want that in the long run if they're right next door, because it's a benefit.
Well, you have a sewer district that
I know.
got taken over in Baser that's
I know.
not in the city limits.
I know.
We don't want to go there.
That's where I'm heading, Doug.
You don't want to head there.
Okay.
That's on what not to do.
Okay, but right now, we're just trying to decide whether or not we want to approve case number DEB 22-129.
You say we get carried away. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just.
This every year we reviewed it, and we go through all these rezones every year, every month. We do the 2.5 acre rezones. We've never denied one. So what does it take to adopt the zoning to match our comp plan? We paid $280-some thousand, $85,000 for this comp plan. Yes, sir.
Commissioner, there are two, to simplify, and please indulge me on this, there are two avenues for rezoning. There is the parcel by parcel rezoning process, which is what you're engaged in today with your earlier case, and which is what you're usually engaged with. There's another procedure that can be used, and I'll call it the en masse rezoning. That is, you designate an area by boundary lines and say, we will conduct public hearings to consider rezoning everything within this tract from Category A to Category B. It does require that you publish notice. It does require that you mail notice to each of the property owners, and it does require that you conduct the necessary public hearings. But it can be done. It's somewhat cumbersome, but you did that with County Road Corridor 1 about a year and a half ago. It's not impossible to be done. It does require significant staff time. But if you wish to look at a large picture of rezoning, that would be the avenue to choose.
Now, when you set this up and you have the public hearing, now, folks could opt out of the rezone?
They
They
can express objection to it.
Okay. But I
They
mean, as
could
long
challenge-
as you own your property, you can do whatever you want with it. You don't have to
Right.
do 2.5. I
That's
mean,
right.
Well, you don't have to use it for what the
Right.
zoning is, but you can't opt out of the zoning.
Right, but
Okay.
you can, but you don't have to,
If you change the use, you have to comply with the zoning.
right.
okay.
If it's farm ground and it gets zoned commercial, you don't have
You
to
can
make
still
it
farm
commercial.
it.
You can keep
Right,
it
Still
you
farming.
get to farm it
taxed
as
until-
long as
And
you want to
everybody
farm
you
it.
sell it to can
Right.
keep using it for
Now,
farming.
the person that sells it,
Unless they
right,
change
that
it.
buys it can.
But you can't leave that hole in the
And they
commercial
don't have
zone.
to, the person that buys it doesn't have to make it commercial. They can continue to farm it, but they have the option of,
Yeah, but you
That's,
can't.
that's
Using it
why,
as
we
commercial.
were trying to streamline everything through planning and zoning and these rezone hearings and notifications sent out to everybody. At the end of the day, they all pass. We've never denied one. The one that did get denied got brought back up 2 weeks later and passed.
Yeah, we're treating the comprehensive plan, land use plan, like a zoning map, but it's officially not.
Commissioner Steving?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead,
can I jump in for just a second?
please.
I don't think there's the stomach, at least in my area of the county, to want to go through a map rezoning process. While the comprehensive plan does have a land use plan that allows for the 2.5, that does not mean that everybody that has 5 acre zoning is okay with that. And I would hate to think of the unnecessary angst that we would put the citizenry through in my area of the county if we tried to hard rezone when many of these parcels are never going to come into the need to be rezoned anytime soon. So that would be my comment on that.
But as long as you own your property, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to do 2.5 acres.
Correct, but. David?
Commissioners, keep in mind that zoning is restrictive, not compulsory. If my property is zoned commercial,
Right,
I'm allowed to use it for commercial purposes, but I'm not required to use it for commercial purposes, and I'm not allowed to, but I'm restricted from using it for industrial purposes. So you can, if you wish to, you can look at large areas for rezoning, or you can follow the procedure you've been doing for the last several years, which is do it parcel by parcel. It's a policy decision on your part.
Well, we already have a large amount of farm ground in the southern part of the county that's zoned industrial or commercial.
Commissioners,
That's
just
continue to be farming.
just like to remind you that the comp plan is not a rezoning. So
Right.
While we've had that conversation about hard rezoning, it's not part of the comp plan.
No.
And that is definitely something we can schedule for an additional work session. I think we've had that on a couple times before.
Can anyone answer how the county went from 10 acres to 5 acres? Because I don't remember any rezoning.
wasn't here.
Used to be 10 acres. And now, then it went to 5 all of a sudden. And I sure don't remember any public hearings or any rezones.
Do you have any?
Commissioner, are you referencing the comprehensive
I don't know how they
plan
did
or
it.
actual zoning?
On the
The actual zoning.
The zoning. the
prior
change
to
of zoning.
1996, you pretty much had to have 10 acres, right?
Right.
Before everything had to be platted, and then it went to 5.
I think that may have been done through an amendment to your zoning regulations rather than an actual rezoning, but I'd have to check, Commissioner.
So we could do an amendment to the zoning regulations to go from 5 to 2.5, where,
We could look at
where our
that.
land use plan shows future land use.
You could ask the Planning Commission to look at that and forward your recommendations. I think the matter at hand this morning is to consider the approval of the comprehensive review plan that was submitted to you by the Planning Commission. It certainly is a document that is moving.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve case number DEV 22-129, the 2023 annual comprehensive plan review.
Motion and a second?
Second.
And a motion and a second. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
Aye.
Good. Well, can I jump in for just a second?
Well, okay, that's fine.
Before you vote?
We already started, but go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. I said three things that I think in the future we're going to have to look at when we revisit the comprehensive plan next time. And I just took a few notes. And this has to do with additional sections or comments on housing, transportation, economic development, specifically related to the Panasonic development in the southern part of the county. I think we're going to have to start really getting into our comprehensive plan items about that development because it's going to really impact the southern part of the county. The second thing I think we need to look at is agritourism, additional sections conforming to changes in state law. And when we actually sit down and have another one of our conversations in a work session on this agritourism, because that seems to be a moving target. And then also our regional transportation plan should be done in time for our next relook at this, and I probably need to get that into the mix. At least I think that will be done by then. Comment.
Okay, well, we can address that in a administrative business next meeting if you'd like, if you want to bring that back up again. Okay, Mike?
Okay, I just wanted to put it out there because this
Sure.
will come up in next look at this.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we're going to start voting again. Is there any?
Ask him for his vote. You two.
Okay,
voted.
this
It's
is
just his turn.
okay. Your vote now, Commissioner Steben.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Right, now we need to consider a motion to approve the abatement of property taxes on certain homesteads or building or improvement damaged by earthquake, fire, flood, storm, or tornado located at 23575 Sandusky Road. Welcome.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good
Shannon,
morning.
how are you today?
Okay, as you know, Bob's still not here, so tag on that.
Well, good.
We'll do
Welcome.
just fine.
Yep.
The property in question, the Knipp property, they had a fire May 18th of 22, burned a barn substantially. The insurance company called it a total loss. They applied, and we're here to see if you will approve the abatement of taxes from May 18th through the end of the year.
This one's out there by the Tongi Quarry, right across
Yeah, I
from
don't
it.
see why not.
So
I think that's kind of why all of this
I
was allowed.
hear
so-
you. If you're ready for a motion.
I'm ready for a
Yeah,
motion.
I move that we approve Board Order 2023-1, approving abatement of property taxes on certain homesteads or building improvements damaged by earthquake, fire, flood, storm, or tornado located at 23575 Sandusky Road.
Second.
Motion is?
Bunch of seconds.
Second.
Second.
I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Steben?
Aye.
Aye.
Absolutely.
Okay, motion carries. Now we have presentations and discussions. You're still up, Mr.
I'm
Kelly.
still here.
Quarterly report for the County Appraiser's Office.
Yes. There are a couple graphs that were included in this. Bob prepared this before he left, and for most of it, I finished some of it, and through lack of communication, I guess, it wasn't a miscommunication, he didn't tell me they weren't updated, so those don't include 22, the graphs of sale prices at the end. They should not have been included in those.
Oh, just
I
on
should
the
have
chart.
updated.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fine.
on the chart.
Okay.
We're
Gotcha.
good.
The numbers is what I was really looking at,
Yeah.
Mark. More than the graphs and the charts.
And as you know, today our change of value notices are going out for all real estate. A little over 32,000 parcels are getting mailed today, and there's substantial changes in a lot of it, so we'll get into that. In the list, there's the parcel counts by use. I don't know if I need to read all of this for you, or
No,
if you
we're
can
good.
read. February 8th, we sent out the personal property renditions, which by state law have to be returned by March 15th, or there's a penalty assigned based on the month they're returned, or whether they're not returned, then they get a 50% penalty. As I think Bob discussed with you earlier, we made some changes in the way we define ag land this year. Cropland values have decreased based on the state's formula of their 8-year average of an 8-year average and what they've added. The grasslands went up, but that was, well, they went up from the state somewhat, and then somewhat because of what we did with the waste, doing away with it. We had a decline in the number of sales from 21 to 22, and a decline in the number of homes built in the county from 21 to 22.
Not surprising.
The telling one is the sales ratio. That's comparing our value to what the property sells for. Our value January 1st, what they sell throughout the year. If you look down through there, we've done, well, we do several things. We do a paired sale of homes that sell more than once in a time frame without significant changes, and that results in a 14% per year trend. Our sales ratio, countywide, we were at 85.5%. 100% is we hit every sale exactly right, which we will never do. It's impossible. And if there's a trend at all during the year, you really want your sales ratio to be in the mid-90s. Because if there's an upward trend during the year, what you appraised in January is worth more in September than it was in January. Things don't jump on an annual basis. It's a continuum throughout when we talk about percentages. But our total ratio at 85% gives you an idea that we were low. And if you go to the values that we have that we've established, you will see that the total change we increased was at 14.85%. So that gets us pretty close. Now there's 2.25%, 2.28% of new construction in there, and then it's broken down further by the cities and the rural. Most of them went up slightly less than last year. The only exception to that was Easton, and Easton is such a small geographical area and such not a high value area to start with. So, as I will say, a $5,000 change on a $20,000 house is a lot bigger percentage than on a $200,000 house. So your percentages are somewhat, subjective there. And we've also provided a list of the average sale prices. Every category in here increased with the exception of new homes in Linwood and Easton, which Bob has lumped Linwood and Easton together in one category because they're, again, smaller jurisdictions, not a high number. There were two new homes built in those two areas. The new home sale prices are very dependent on what is being built. But every other new home and existing home sale price increased average. These are averages. The interesting one is if you look at new homes in the rural area, our average sale price of spec homes built in the rural area is now $603,000.
I saw that.
That's
Wow.
pretty high.
Yeah.
Now, that's homes built for resale. In the rural area, you have a lot more custom built. In other words, I own the land and have somebody build me my house, or built homes by the owners themselves. We don't have a lot of, none that I know of, spec barn-style homes being built. Most of the spec homes are going to be nicer quality
Estate homes
than maybe the average would be if you lumped them all together. Any questions?
So at the 85%, what have we got to do for next year to get back above?
Well, like I said, we've raised it average of 14.85%, so that would put us at 99. Everything we see nationwide, region-wide, and even somewhat what we're starting to see here indicate that the experts, quote-unquote experts, don't feel housing prices are going to go up. In certain areas, they're predicting them to go down double-digit percentages. We're not in that area. That's areas that went up 40% in a year. We'll see, but we're not projecting these type of increases to continue with the increased interest rates, because that affects affordability for everybody.
Do you think it's just that Northeast Kansas is a lot higher increases than the rest of the state?
Actually, numerous counties we talked to were going higher than we were.
Really?
Yeah. Potawatomi County, I believe, was one of them. They said their average was about 20%. Again, they're in Northeast Kansas, but
Right, they're still in Northeast Kansas, and you're close to
I
Manhattan.
don't think we can compare to Wallace County or any of those.
No.
They don't have the market that.
But yeah, they're still in Northeast Kansas. So.
Mike, do you have anything? Commissioner Stephen?
No, I've read the report, and after we had our property tax task force meeting last week, I tell you what, all I can do is shake my head and say it's unsustainable for folks. I hope the legislature will do something.
Well, that's the legislature. That's not the county.
They are at least talking about it
Yep.
this year.
Okay. Any other questions for Kevin?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, okay. Mark, do you have anything?
Commissioners, since you brought up the legislators, I'd like to add in that the property valuations are controlled by state statute. I know there's a lot of misinformation or misperception that somehow the county appraiser gets to choose how he's going to set the value on these homes, but it's controlled by state statute. A lot of what they do is used as a software program that analyzes what the property values are and sets the rate. So it's not at their discretion, I guess. They have to follow state statute. Two, we're required, and this is one of the pages that Mr. Buchanan touched on, but we're required, again, by state statute to be within 90 to 110% of values.
Yeah.
And on the page that was provided, page 3 of the report, we didn't hit 90% on any of those values. We were below, which means they failed to the low side of valuation. And I know I'm one of those people, when you get your valuations, you find it hard to believe that they failed on the low side.
I agree.
But it's consistent across the county. They have failed to the low side, which they're mandated by the state to fix that. They can't leave it low. It has to be within that 90 to 110% ratio.
Which the appraiser's office is working on improving.
And they are traditionally, 7 years I've watched them come in with these reports, and each year they've been at the low end. I've not seen one where it was at the high end of the 110. It's always been closer to the 90%. And this is probably the lowest I've seen, actually, in 7 years. So I want to point that out because I know that there is a lot of confusion on the process, but it's all controlled by state code, state statutes, and the appraiser's office has to follow those codes. They don't have the discretion of not following it. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is, I'm just going to look at the countywide one. I'm not going to go by the cities, but the average sale price of existing homes that are already built, $291,000 was the average sale price of homes. That's up $25,000 over the previous year, 10% on existing homes. New homes, average sale price in the county, $462,000. So when we attend to these Panasonic meetings and they talk about the biggest demand they're going to have is for affordable housing,
That's not
I don't
affordable.
know that Leavenworth County is it. I'm just,
Yeah, they're
I'm just
not
putting it out there.
affordable.
291,000 is the existing homes, 462,000 is new homes. That's all I had.
Commissioner Stephen, you were wanting to say something?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, Mr. Lawson.
Go ahead.
Can you tell, this is just for informational purposes, the county commission is not truly the direct oversight over the appraiser's office. They have to follow the rules promulgated by the Department of Revenue. Can you kind of reflect on what the rules are about that they have to follow?
I don't know that we
30
have enough
pages.
time for that, and I doubt that I'm the right person to,
Yeah, it's a book.
to cover all that, because it's a book, it's a class, and I don't know how many years it takes to get certified in that, but Mr. Buchanan's had a lot of years of experience. Mr. Weber's had a lot of years of experience, which is what's required by state statute. So I doubt I'd be the person to explain that whole process. What I can tell you is you have to be certified as an appraiser, you have to have training, and you have to pass tests. Then the state selects an appraiser with the county's assistance, so neither side gets the only say. So that's how the system works. But again, before you can even be considered, you have to be qualified.
And also,
The county commission cannot set the rules for the appraiser to follow. That's all established by the state. Perfect.
That's correct.
and the county commissioners cannot say, we're going to put a cap on your appraisal. You can't say, I'm going to put 3% on it.
That's,
Jeff's right
there's
there.
actually a state statute that says you cannot.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think David told us that.
We
Jeff
can't-
did it.
we
Well,
can't
you are
influence it.
liable for the loss in tax.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally.
Yeah.
Not ready to make
Personally.
up.
Backs out of that one quick.
We cannot, the Board of County Commissioners cannot influence it one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's illegal, and again, it puts you personally liable.
And we can't make a decision to lower anybody's.
Everybody has the right to appeal their
Right,
value.
but
if
that's
they
not
feel
us.
the value is too high. The value, yes, is a driver of taxes, but it's not the only driver. The mill levies that are set by the governing boards are also the driver of taxation. If the value is correct, and nobody likes their taxes. Nobody sitting here likes their taxes. We all wish our taxes were lower. But if the value is correct and the boards have followed the correct procedures set forth in state statutes to generate their budgets, then the taxes are correct. The value is the one thing that is subjective, because value is not it's never been a written thing where you can say this is exactly what it's worth. There are multiple methods of arriving at a value. Some fit certain properties, classes of properties better. Commercial properties, the landlords tend to look at what it can generate in income. You can generate an income approach. Our homes, we look at differently than that. We look at desire of what we want to own. I can tell you that usually when we speak to people about buying homes, it's, we wanted that kitchen, we wanted this layout, whatever it is. But for every home, there's a person that wants that. It's matching those two up to get the maximum value.
You get a chance. Can I say something?
And I will address the sales ratio a little bit. This is the sales ratio, and the state has recognized over the last several years the rate of increase, because that 10% we're held to. The last couple of years, homes have been increasing more than 10% a year. So they do allow a trending of what we established January 1st to when it sells. So when we get the sales ratio from the state, it will be better than this. This is the raw numbers. This is saying last year's value, because that's what everybody's looking at when they get their change of value notices, what our 22 value was and what our 23 value is in the increase. This is what we valued in 22 versus what sold throughout the year of 22. The true sales ratio, they will trend a sale that happened in November and say we say there's a 14% trend, so it will be trended over 10% more than our value was to come up with because as long as I've been in this business, the last few years have been unique in the amount of increase that was going up. We never had to worry about exceeding that 10% before in a year. There were years in the early 2000s that were probably close, but the pandemic and the low interest rates really drove values and supply chains. It was a perfect storm. The cost to build a building has gone up significantly. I don't know if any of you will find out when you get your insurance renewals on your homes that they want to raise your value significantly because the cost to replace it has gone up significantly.
Right. That's correct.
So the state,
If I could, just one question. I appreciate it. Thanks for briefing us on this. I enjoyed looking at these things. But I think when you get all this, the numbers are great, but when it comes down to is property tax. And I think this last 2 years, especially last year, I've seen more movement because of this county, because of cities and people out in the audience to talk to their legislators to finally deal with this. We've told before about how most of us are paying the bills, not all of us are, and they have to fix that formula. I'm not here to blame anybody, but I do notice, and I think Doug even mentioned earlier, that I've seen some movement up there to at least start to look at this, to see, okay, what can we do to keep this from going up 15 and 20%. Everybody expects, in my opinion, everybody expects their house to go up because when you want to sell it, you want it to go up. But some of the hits we've taken in the last couple of years, like I've said before, again, it has nothing to do with you, and I appreciate the information you passed out to me. But the legislators are working on it, and it's up to everybody watching or in the audience or anywhere, City of Leavenworth or anybody else, to keep that pressure on them so we can get something done to at least minimize what the people are doing. People are leaving this state because of these property taxes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Colson, you had something?
I was just going to ask, so the state is basically seeing that you're out of compliance because your values are too low, but they understand why you're out of compliance is what you're saying. So they're going to give you like a time frame to get caught back up, or what did they say?
Well, they are trending sales, providing the counties provide the information of what the trend should be. That doesn't necessarily mean every county will be back in compliance, but they understand that the last several years have been unique and that values have dramatically increased, and keeping up with them, we would like to say there's no political pressure not to, but there is political pressure not to, because nobody, county commissioner, city commissioner, general taxpayer, wants their taxes to go up. They like that their value went up, but they don't like their taxes going up. And if the legislature comes up with a different formula, our job is to follow what the state law is, and we will follow whatever they come up with.
Okay.
Thanks. Mark, you had something? No?
I have one more.
Doug?
I know, have you been watching anything going on in the legislature about some property tax exemptions that may be coming? That's going to affect us greatly.
The way it was proposed, it would affect a lot of things greatly.
And that's being heard today?
Basically,
I believe so.
Today? Okay.
the last I saw is they do not believe it will pass in its current form, if it passes at all. But it would be, what it would grant is an exemption to any business that the local government competes with in any form. So your Meals on Wheels program means all restaurants are now exempt because
Right.
you're competing with them. It
Health
was
club.
brought by the owner of a gym.
Right.
So all fitness centers would be exempt because at least in Leavenworth,
community
because we
center.
have the community center down here. It's, as with a lot of things the legislature looks at, there's unintended consequences
Exactly.
when they do those
think?
things.
Every doctor's office competes with the health
Yeah.
department.
The
Right.
health department.
Health department, yes.
City provides its own trash trucks.
What about rental?
Sometimes
What about
we
rental
get
property?
stupid.
You got the VA now and Mitchell's Housing on Fort Leavenworth that rent to the public. So that means everybody who has rental property is exempt.
We could see, that's potential, but.
So where does that do?
Where-
That shifts it back to the homeowner.
Somebody else is going to have
Right,
to pay
for
more.
property owners.
That's what I said. We can't. The problem's not
Exempting more
exempt.
property.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's fixing what is broken to
The
begin with.
YWCA should pay taxes instead of making
Right,
all the
that's
other
it.
health organizations
Instead of
exempt.
exempting
Right.
everybody.
Put more people back on the tax rolls
Instead of taking them off, that's what I say.
If you look at the current tax law, I think there's like 100 and some exemptions, special exemptions that the legislators have made to carve out people from paying their property taxes.
It's not the first
And
time
some
we
are
talked
people
about
that
that.
didn't
And
need.
they just keep adding more, proposing more like this one.
Yeah.
And some
Instead
business-
of, and again, like Commissioner Smith said, that's not a tax abatement, it's a tax shift.
Right.
Shifts it to the homeowner.
It
Right.
shifts it over to the homeowners who don't get those exemptions.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Steedman, did you have anything further to add?
One question is a little bit something different, but Mr. Buchanan, the recent court cases or voted cases, have they vindicated your office as far as how you handle agritourism in the county?
The voter cases that were heard, yes, because the law changed in 22, and it all comes down to that unless they specifically make it retroactive, laws become effective July 1st of any given year. Our evaluation and therefore our assessment classification is effective January 1st. There was a significant change for 23 in some of those properties because the law did change. But for 22, they upheld that we were correct in our interpretation of the law that existed January 1st of 22.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, presentations and discussion items. We don't have anything, I know that we don't have anything, I didn't see anybody on additional comments, so we'll go ahead and do a presentations for the board. Do you have anything that you want to add, additional comment from the?
Well, I do. I just got a couple things. I know Commissioner Smith, the other Commissioner Smith, and I attended the US 73 and K7 improvement project
yeah.
last week to see that. If y'all folks haven't taken a look at that, please look that up. It's interesting, to say the least. Where is Bill not here? Okay. I was invited to attend the Lansing City Employee Chili Cook-Off contest last year. They did well, so there was no chili cheating going on. Where is Bill? And I stood in for chairman for the ribbon cutting on, is it kneecap? Is that how you put it? Kneecap. And I'll tell you something, there's a lot I learned on that. Finally, they read me out of there because they let the little kids take a nap, and they told me they was cutting the lights out, so I guess I got tired of it. But the bottom thing is I was really impressed on what they do out there, Commissioner. That's all I have.
Commissioner Smith?
Like I said, we attended the K7 parallel informational meeting. You and I have JCAB tomorrow in Atchison.
Yes, we do.
Went to the MARC meeting yesterday. Had Pacer City Council last Wednesday night, Fairmount last Thursday night, and I think that's it.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Friday had a phone Zoom meeting with Senator Tyson and the tax force that we're working on different items, and some of it touched right on what Mark was talking about, how they're coming up with more exemptions, which are not exemptions, they're actually just tax shifts. Right now, for the state of Kansas to hand Leavenworth County this system to use property taxes to pay our bills with doesn't work out very well for us. Only 30,000 people right now are paying all our bills. So that bill that we're talking about, we're going to get it down to 20,000 people are paying all the bills. So it's just going to make it worse. So we went over things like that, talking about shifting more of the weight off of property tax onto income tax, because then you have 200,000 people paying a little bit instead of 30,000 people paying a lot. Then we also had the task force in Tonganoxie with Commissioner Stephen about kind of the same issues, but more local input on that. And then had the city Leavenworth Commission meeting last night where...
I have one I forgot. Can I
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Please.
Yep, that's all I got.
I know, Jeff, you're
I'm good.
Mark and I are going to be attending the Association of the United States Army Henry Leavenworth chapter sponsored breakfast this coming Monday. I didn't know if there was anybody else going. Mark, it was just...
I think I'm going to be going.
Okay,
too.
great. Okay, that's all I had. Excuse me.
Okay. Commissioner Stephen, you have anything to report?
Just the property tax task force was there with Jeff last Thursday. It went good. We're not quite ready. We're going to try to meet with the legislators, but we're going to meet one more time to get ourselves more focused. And then I'm speaking at the Linwood Library tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and they have sandwiches if anybody wants to come.
Okay, and finally me, I didn't totally vacation while I was on vacation. I participated in the Transit Authority meeting last Wednesday afternoon, and a decision that I was happy that was made by the Transit Authority, that they voted not to grant a tax exemption for a business that had requested one, that it had been recommended, but the board itself voted not to approve. Let's see, workforce partnership on yesterday. There was really nothing. There was just a board training, and then I participated in the Port Authority meeting last week, and they made a decision not to approve funding for the UPS store.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Oh, did we? What did we talk about?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about that last week. I did make that one.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is it for me. And if we don't have anything else, I'll entertain a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
Voting, aye.
Aye.
Mike,
Aye, and thank you.
thank you.
Aye.
Motion,
Thank you.
we're adjourned.